Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Brak the Barbarian. As you can see, it's got this really cool sword and sorcery cover. I'm not 100% who painted it, but I do love the giant guy with the helmet on, wielding an axe. It's very like Franzetta-ish. That being said, I think that's kind of one of the many ways in which you could compare Brak to Conan. I mean, in a lot of ways, he is a Conan. If you're familiar with that phrase, it's basically just characters that were created after Conan that highly resemble Conan. A lot of authors at the time were writing for the same magazine, so when Conan was successful, they copied him. John Jakes has actually stated in interviews that he wrote Brak the Barbarian because he felt there wasn't enough Conan stories out there, and he was a fan of Conan, so I respect that myself. I did actually like Brak the Barbarian. This is a collection of short stories. I do believe there are 3 or 4 book-length Brak the Barbarian stories that kind of highlight a little more of his adventure. Much like Conan, he is after a specific goal, which it never really says why he's going to a certain place. Conan is, of course, his goal is not so much to be king, he later does become a king, but to kind of set himself up for success in the world. Whereas Brak is trying to discover a very specific place, and what he's going to do there, we are not 100% sure. At least in the stories. There's a good chance he's probably going to sell himself as a mercenary, as he does in a lot of these stories. This is peak sword and sorcery. I honestly haven't looked up reviews to see how other people felt about Brak the Barbarian. I liked him. I do think John Jakes is a very good writer. I mean, he's a very prolific writer as well. More probably known for his like Kent Family Chronicles and the North-South series. But his sword and sorcery stuff, as well as the science fiction stuff, which I think predates a lot of those other series, is definitely worth reading. It's actually how I came into John Jakes. I started with Mention My Name in Atlantis, which I will do a review on because that's a whole nother, that's a whole different kind of book entirely. But yeah, I did like Brak the Barbarian. Very much sword and sorcery with a cosmic horror bent, which is some of my favorite Conan stories. I mean, it says right here, into the thrice-fired hell of Yab-Hagath strode the yellow-haired giant of the north, Brak the Barbarian. And once again, these are a collection of short stories. It does kind of seem from the outside that it's going to be just a single book, but no, this is once again a collection of short stories. I'm going to read some of the books that feature Brak and see if they're a bit different, and perhaps shed a little more light on what his overall quest is and why he's trying to get to this specific city. But one thing I do have to say is, I mean, you can see it right there, thrice-fired hell of Yab-Hagath. Some of it is a little hokey in a way that I don't think Conan's or Cole's or even Solomon Kane's stuff was. Like, it's just some of the speech is a little weird, as well as some of the descriptions. It seems like at times it's trying to be sword and sorcery instead of just being sword and sorcery, if that makes sense. But all that's forgivable, as like I said, the action is good, and while the themes themselves and tropes are pretty much tried and true, like Conan-esque, like I said, mostly cosmic horror, I did find the stories themselves to be worth reading. And if you're a fan of sword and sorcery and just want to read some older works maybe, or you like John Jakes and have never tried his sword and sorcery, I do recommend trying to find a copy of this. I don't know if they're available if they've been like put on ebooks or reprints, but I will link those down below if they have been. Now, in comparison to Conan, I'm gonna say Brak is basically Conan with blonde hair. I mean, he's very much the same build of Conan. You know, he's the super rough and tumble barbarian with shredded muscles who is an outlander and is in these like desert civilizations where he scorns civilization because they've forgotten how to live like wild men type of thing. So he very much is just Conan with blonde hair, and once you accept that, I do think reading these stories makes it much more enjoyable. And I don't know, like I said, I haven't read the other books, so I don't know if Brak kind of comes into his own in them. I do just know that in this, he was very much a tried and true Conan clone. But yeah, there's not much else I have to say about this. Read it if you want to check out some Sword and Sorcery. I'm going to be doing a lot more Sword and Sorcery reviews. I picked up some DMR books I'm going to show you guys in another video. If you have read the Brak books and they do add a lot more to it, please let me know in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.